This video is an introduction to subjects and objects in German. When we speak of subjects in English, we're usually speaking about school subjects or topics or areas of study. But that's not what we're talking about in language and grammar. Likewise, when we think of objects, we think of shapes, concrete physical things that we can touch, but that's not what we're talking about in language and in grammar. On the contrary, when we speak of subjects in grammar, we're speaking about the role of words in a sentence. The subject is the active element of a sentence. It is the noun which controls the verb. Objects, on the other hand, are the passive element in the sentence. They are nouns which are controlled by the verb. Let me show you what I mean with a simple sentence in English. I see you. In this sentence, we have the verb see and two other elements. An active element, which is I, that's the subject, that's controlling the verb see. And we also have an object, you, which is on the receiving end of that verb. It is completely passive in this sentence. If we flip this sentence around, you see me, we still have two elements in the sentence, one active and one passive, but they've been flipped around, and so you in this case is the subject. You is controlling the verb see and is the active element, whereas me is the passive element, not doing anything, but receiving the action of the verb and therefore the object. In German, we have the same concepts, so let's look at the translation of those two sentences. Ich sehe dich. Ich is the active element of the sentence, controlling the verb sehe. It determines the ending of the verb sehe. Therefore, it is the subject. Dich, on the other hand, is completely passive. It is receiving the action of the verb sehe and is therefore the object. Let's flip it round. Du siehst mich. In this case, du is the subject because it is controlling the verb siehst and determines the ending of siehst, whereas mich is the passive element of the sentence that receives the action of the verb and is therefore the object. That's the basic idea, but it's important that I show you the two types of objects that there are. Let's have a look at this sentence in English. I give you the book. In this case, I is the active element controlling the verb give, and so it is the subject. And in fact, the book is the direct object, the object which is being controlled by the verb give. It is being given. In this sentence, however, we also have an indirect object, you. We sometimes translate this by to you or for you. And it is an object being affected by the verb, but only indirectly. The translation of this sentence in German will help us understand this better. Ich gebe dir das Buch. Ich is the subject because it controls the verb gebe. Das Buch is the direct object being affected directly by the verb gebe, and dir, to you, is the indirect object being impacted indirectly by the verb. We've used the terms subject and object, but there are actually some German-specific terms that we need to learn and get used to using. And so we call a subject in German a word in the nominative case. It is nominative. We call a direct object a word in the accusative case. It is accusative. And we call the indirect object a word in the dative case. It is dative. That's all very well, but how does this help you? What do you need to learn? Firstly, it's very important that you learn the gender of nouns in German. When you learn a new noun, you should learn the der, die, or das that is attached to that noun because it tells you the gender. Also, over time, you will learn when to use which case. After certain verbs and after certain prepositions, you need to choose either the accusative or the dative case, and you'll learn that over time. You will also learn the endings for articles and adjectives, and we will be introduced to those endings in the next slide. These are the most important endings that you need to learn when it comes to nouns. You should be familiar with der, die, das, and die, which are the nominative words for the. If you learn a new noun, you should learn it with one of these words. They change in the accusative only in one of those columns, the masculine column. Den, die, das, and die. Those words in the rectangle are the most important ones for you to learn right now. The dative ones, dem, der, dem, and den, are important, but you'll learn them over time. This is the second part of the most important endings you need to learn in regard to nouns, and it's the word a or an. In the nominative, we have ein, eine, ein, and meine. In the accusative, only one changes, einen, eine, ein, and meine. In the dative, which you will become more familiar with over time, we have einem, einer, einem, and meinen. Just so you're aware, the final column is different from the rest because, of course, we can't say a in the plural form. So I've chosen a word, my, which has the same endings and therefore shows us the pattern. Finally, here are some examples which show you why these two tables of endings are important when we're learning German. Mein Bruder heißt David. My brother's name is David. Now we only have a nominative noun here, my brother. But in the second sentence, ich habe einen Bruder, we have a nominative pronoun, ich, and then an accusative noun, einen Bruder, which is why we change the ein to become einen. A second example, meine Schwester heißt Anna. Here again, we only have a nominative noun. In the second sentence, ich habe eine Schwester, we have a nominative pronoun. Ich is in control of the verb and eine Schwester is the passive element receiving the action of the verb. It is accusative. Ich sehe die Frau. Ich is nominative and die Frau is accusative. Die Frau sieht mich is the opposite of that. Die Frau has become nominative even though the die hasn't changed, and ich has become mich in the accusative. Das Auto ist modern. The car is in the nominative case because it is controlling the verb. But in the second sentence, ich kaufe das Auto is in now the accusative case because ich is nominative and controlling the verb. Mein Vater ist gut in Mathe. My father is good at maths. My father is in control of the verb ist. Whereas in the second sentence, ich liebe meinen Vater. Ich is now in control of the verb and determining the ending of the verb, whereas meinen Vater is accusative, receiving that love, and therefore has the en ending. Sie gibt den Stift. She gives the pen. She, nominative, den Stift, accusative. But sie gibt mir den Stift adds an element. This time we have sie, nominative, den Stift, accusative, but mir, dative. And finally, der Onkel mag den Hund. Der Onkel is nominative, den Hund is accusative. But if we flip them, see how the endings change. Der Hund mag den Onkel. The dog likes the uncle. The word for the has changed, and therefore the the sense of the sentence has changed too.